Welcome back to Inventing Construction. I'm Ross Griffin, and today's topic is clients have to change or clients need to change. I don't know, someone said it was a little bit aggressive, but we'll go with the need this time, I think. We're going to discuss traditional mindsets, the difficulties these create, how do we help with this change in the future, and what are the advantages for, I guess, project teams, clients, etc. But first of all, I better introduce Sean, aka Sean John, aka the Kerryman. Sean, maybe you can introduce yourself there. Where are you from? What are you doing? You know.
Thank you for that fantastic introduction again. I mean, now I'm going to be known for that forever. Appreciate it. I have about 20 years experience and the construction just over that. The first, I suppose, 10, 12 years, I worked with professional quantity surveying firms, different parts of the world. So from that, I was doing everything that a quantity surveyor would do client side, estimating, cost planning, tendering, contract negotiations, amendments, and as well as then contract administration, employer's agent duties. So I've done that for about 12 years, and then I went client side. I went working for a developer. Again, I'd done a number of large schemes, worked with some fantastic people, great teams, great collaboration to deliver them. Some really good practices to get those into the place that we got them to. But overall, I've kind of, over the last 15 years, I focused on dispute resolution. So really it was dispute resolution and improving how people stop falling out with each other, clarity of the documentation. And again, just being able to have good relationships with people to actually get things done and resolved. Very good. And today we're sitting in wonderful Copenhagen as the sun is shining outside, and it's just a fantastic day. 400 degrees internally.
It's wonderful, yeah. So what more do you want? But let's get into it, Sean. So today's topic, the clients have to change their mindset. They need to change their mindset. And why is this? What's the purpose of changing mindset? Can we not do what we've always done?
Well, I think it's good to learn from the past, that's for sure. It's always good to understand what's gone on. But I do think the level of duplication in the construction industry would be colossal. And I'm saying that generally.
So inefficiency?
Absolutely. Multiple people in different teams doing the same job, replicating the same information. And also the requirement historically was, I need bodies on the site.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Bums on seats.
But who's going to do that? No, I don't. It's in, Guadalajara. I don't know. Why do we need to go there? Because we don't start for another few months. So I think the world has now got to a point where you don't have to. You can see output and knowledge and intelligence without having to physically see somebody sitting there on a 9-to-5 basis. I think that day is truly behind us.
So could you argue that the traditional mindset is untrusting of people? So if I see Sean John sitting in the corner, I know he's working, right? But if he's working on Teams or, I put you in the corner. If he's working on Teams at home in West Kerry, that's a different thing, right? I'm not getting the same value for my money if I'm the client, if I can't see you.
Ultimately, for me, it was always about intelligence. What intelligence I can get from my consultant team or from my team, full stop. It's about what they're bringing. It doesn't matter where they are. If you don't trust your employee enough that you have to see them, I'd question, one, do you need that employee? Because really you should look to replace them. And secondly, if you're that type of an individual, you're going to have to look at how you deliver your business. Because ultimately, what are we here for? We're here to deliver projects, construction projects, for a purpose. There should be enough intelligence, and what you're trying to do is drive intelligence into that process. Where the person is, I'm not really even talking about agile working or how many. It's about what service were you asking for. So for me, clients should be asking themselves, is the consultant giving me what I'm paying them for? I asked them to do X, Y, and Z. They're not doing X. They do a little bit of Y, and I don't really use their report. Why then am I paying them thousands of pounds on a monthly basis or any other?
For the bums on seats, right?
For the bums on seats. Absolutely. I mean, that's really wasting your own money.
I often find that in this remote working environment that we now see ourselves, especially construction, and the shift that we're going through is that, yes, you have agreements with consultants, with clients, even with team members and employees, etc. There are agreements to do something, right? But that something is broken down into small individual tasks that could be daily, weekly, monthly deliverables. You soon realize if someone is first of all able, secondly, actually putting in the effort and time in relation to that deliverable. You can figure that out for yourself by just looking a little bit closer. That same individual, if they were sitting beside you in the office, would have the same output at the end of the day, right?
So, like historically, what I found was you've always got those characters in the office that walk around with loads of paper. Obviously, we've now gone paperless, so they walk around with coffee cups or something else. Fresh air. But we're in a place where the currency that we now operate in is compliance. For me as a client, it was compliant. That's the key thing. And it's about how that's driven into what people are providing. Going back to your design schedules, really what most clients should be asking for, and hopefully do, I'll take your deliverables, please, against the program that I'm paying you against. Because that's fundamental. How do I know what you're supposed to do? And what we need to do as an industry, but I would say to every client out there, ask your consultant teams for a design program with the deliverables set out that they're responsible for. So you're going back to your responsibility matrix. So you're tying in some very useful tools as a client to be able to get value. How else do you know? Because you don't mind if there's 10 bodies. Well, at the outset you will, because you'll be looking for the fee. But you're also just looking for the output.
Yeah. I think this is where smart contracts is really going to blow up this entire thing. But we won't get into that today. We'll come back to that in the future. But traditional mindsets, okay, we're not just talking about clients needing, and clients, we're picking on you guys today, and apologies for that. But
we do like clients.
We do like clients as consultants. We love you guys, So please do pick up the phone, drop us a mail. Don't get offended by any of this. But traditional mindsets is not just about the bums on seats. It's about, those monthly reports you talked about, that 40-page document that I receive as a client every month from my consultant. What is that actually doing for me?
Well, it comes back to having useful conversations and understanding what their business needs. What exactly are you asking me for? This is what I can do for you. I can do these 5 things. But if you only really want 1 or 2, because that's what you need for your business, then let's just do 2. I won't charge you for 5, but I might be able to give you something else you haven't seen. But I think it does come back to clients should be constantly challenging their consultants about duplicating effort. So this historical view, I need 20 bodies and I need them on site. We should be looking at what that's actually doing, or more importantly, actually we don't need 20, we need 1. Because you know what? I'm already paying 2 other entities to give me that service anyway, and that's where we should be. That's where clients should be focusing.
I think that's an interesting one, actually. Yeah, traditional bums on seats would mean that you have a team of people. Let's say, hypothetically speaking, it's a capital project. You need 10 QSs. They need to be sitting on site. The reality of today is that you could reduce your cost. Not dramatically, but you can reduce your consultancy fee by having those quantity surveyors, cost managers working remotely, and having 1 person on site, 1 person locally. Doesn't even need to be on site for that matter,
So if we sorry to interrupt you, if we look at the challenges you have with geographically putting the right people with the right expertise on that project, they could be absolutely at polar ends. What I would say to every client is, you want the expertise and the knowledge. And if you have the compromise, if they have to be remote, they're advising in that capacity, and they're working just in a different location, and they're periodically coming to see you, that is 100% worth more to you, 100% worth more to you than somebody who just happens to sit in that location. Because they may not have the expertise. They're going to profess that they might, and they're costing you a fortune. You just don't know.
You're paying out anyway. It doesn't matter, but you're not getting the value and the deliverable you need, or the advice, right?
So I would go back to having that cup of tea with my client, or as a client, have that cup of tea with the consultant, and ensure that not that the director, whoever it may be, sit in front of you, because they may be gone after that, or you might see them once a quarter, once a month, if you're lucky. You want the people who are doing the service for you with the right experience, questioning the right things, putting together the right documents. So ultimately, you're paying less money. You will pay less money if you adopt that approach.
Something you mentioned earlier, Sean, was the duplication of effort and the duplication of work. Let's dig into that a little here, because the quantity surveyor, and as the traditional, QS way back in the day, were created for the purpose of reducing the duplication of effort, reducing the duplication of work. What do I mean by that? So preparing the bills of quantities way back was generally done by not the contractors, but the supply chain to the contractors. It meant that the entire supply chain were duplicating the effort of quantification in order to be able to produce a price to submit to the contractor. So the contractor plus contractors could submit in their bid to the client. Contractors came together and said, well, hang on a second, this doesn't make any sense. Why don't we create the bill of quantities for the supply chain to price against, so that we can control the quality and the communication of information? And so what we're now doing today as QS is we're sitting on client side, producing one document, the bill of quantities, so that the contractors can use to submit their price and give that BOQ to their supply chain. So the standard through the process is the same, the structure is the same, but the extract and the quantification is done once on the client side. Now, we often have these huge debates with our clients about, well, client takes the risk on quantities, and we're going, well, no. And a lot of clients seem to think that by doing the quantity, you take the quantitative risk. That has nothing to do with it. It depends on what your contract is. But ideally speaking, by the client doing that work, you reduce the duplication of effort, the duplication of work that
the cost goes into it multiple times,
and the costs as well. The contractor needs to get the cost back, the supply chain needs to cost back, but also the controlling of the quality. And I think that's part of for me, it's part of the traditional mindset, the lack of understanding really on procurement and contracts about the preparation of quantification.
So there's a few items there. The few items there which I think are worth exploring. You've got one, obviously, duplication of effort. That covers absolutely almost every aspect of construction, like from supply chain engagement to tendering for work, the basis you tender for work. The key there and what's happening now is how we do that, the openness that needs to happen, the engagement. If you properly engage with subcontractors, suppliers, main contractors in a very meaningful way, they will respond positively. As a client, if you do that, they will respond positively. They also want to work with you. Ideally, if it fits if the company that you're approaching wants to work with you, they will meaningfully, and they may actually identify early scope gaps, items that are missing, things that you may not have, maybe even your consultant team might not have thought about. So it's good to get that in, and that will then, if you're rolling with one document or you're rolling with one system, you then are in a place where you are now immediately, when the supply chain gets that document back months later to price under an official tender or whatever it might look like, they'll go, hold on a second, we've been through this, we know this. The contractors have, whether it be the quantities and the manner they get that, full transparency will allow them the ability to go, actually, it's not about trust, they can interrogate it themselves, and then they actually come to own the document.
Have you ever heard the saying, the more information we give the supply chain, the more expensive the price will be, or the higher the price will be?
I think that's down to poor information, if that's the case, because I've found in my life, the more engaged you are, the more aware and the de-risked it becomes. But you have to spend money. You have to spend some money, not a lot, some to de-risk it. So if someone comes with a legitimate, logical risk on a project and a client does nothing apart from put their fingers in their ears, it will cost them more. However, if you accept that there's something to be done, it might be only some resource. It might even cost that much money, and you de-risk that situation. That person's bought you. That they will actively come to the table.
I've heard it an awful lot actually, and maybe across Scandinavia and other countries we work at internationally, is that the more information you give the contractor, the higher the price will be. Our argument is the more information you give the contractor, the more transparent you are, the lower the price will be, because they'll understand the project.
They'll understand the project.
Now, the first comment means that if you give the contractor more information, they'll have a higher price. Not necessarily, but what will end up happening is once the construction project starts, the contractor will realize that they didn't have all the information. You weren't being transparent, and that's where you get your additional cost, additional claims
100%. You may have an initial higher cost in the tender. However, your contingency won't be eroded. You're looking at outturn cost. Like one piece I'd say in terms of duplication. So a very practical example is we look at the quality assurance on site. So ultimately, you're paying a contractor or a supply chain partner to perform a piece of work that you want to be able to rely on the warranty or guarantee, just as if you bought a watch or anything else.
A car, what doesn't matter.
You want to be able to rely on that warranty and guarantee because that's the product you bought. Because your business can't afford to replace that watch or that car or whatever it might be a second time. But you're, as a professional, you're asking them to come in and do a piece of work for you, install it correctly. So it comes down to why then wouldn't you, I didn't trust is you're contractually engaging with them to rely on that. You're asking them under the banner of their own quality assurance, which every business in the world does for auditing purposes. You're relying on them to do a piece of work that they, one, manufactured correctly, super. They've installed it correctly, super. So now you're getting the guy who's giving you the warranty to put it in. And you're getting him to sign off that it's installed in accordance with his literature. Brilliant, says I. Unbelievable. Now you've got evidence to rely on. Now you've got one piece of data, and let's say the main contractor who you brought in is now able to sign off on it as well to say that he's checked it. He or she may have checked it. Brilliant. So now you have two people. So why would you go a third? Nobody in the world goes a third. I wouldn't. If it's your money, would you spend it? So now you've got two pieces. You might have a checker just as a superficial to make sure it's absolutely been done correct, that there's no holes in the system. But now you can use that. You can use that information, and that duplication gets removed. You can use that for your. You can use it for your program. You can, if you use that electronically, you can see exactly where you are pretty much in real time. And you can also, if you're as quantity surveyor, you can use, if you pre-agreed certain parameters in the system, you can now use that for your evaluation. So you don't even have to go to site to do your evaluation. And it's more accurate than someone walking around going, I think it's 20%. Yeah, it's 20%. And two QSs arguing about it over a cup of tea. That as a client, I would be looking for those efficiencies to have the upfront agreement of how I'm going to pay for my project.
What if then in the local market, it's tradition to do it in a certain way? Like, and we come up with this, we come against this an awful lot, when, especially around the bill of quantities, especially around the production of quantities, especially around the transparency of information. That's not how we do it here. This is how we do it. This is, you unload, a lorry load of information to the contractors and expect them to understand the project in a 6-week, 8-week, 12-week period that you as a client or consultant have been working on for 12, 16 months, depending on the design stage and the procurement strategy. So how do you deal with that in terms of that response? This is not how we do it here.
So historically, what I found happened was clients would send out a big tender, load of documents to the contractor, they get it cold, they start looking through it, takes them weeks to even get into it, at which point it's almost counterproductive. So you're going to the mid-tender interview 4 weeks in, or something like that.
Something like that. Depending
and
on the project,
they're finding out things about the project that you could have, if you met them and had a cup of tea with them, you could have told them. So I'd advise every client out there at the very outset of that tender conversation, get the architect up, get your engineer up, get the various people who've spent tens and tens of hours working for you, get them up and present your scheme. And then what you do is you hand the contractor that documents, digitally, hard copy, whichever. But what it shows is the intent that you're bringing. The transparency is there.
Yeah.
You go back to, I'm here to help. Right? Yeah. Now, before the team who actually leaves the room who will do the work for the next few weeks, they've got the best briefing they've ever had. They've had a lovely lunch. They've had a lovely cup of tea. And do you know how much it saved you as a client? Huge, because these guys are already working for you. They're engaged. That to me is how clients should ask or expect their teams to perform. That's how they would want us to do. We come in and we present to them.
Yeah, and of course we're picking on our poor client friends, but this relates to anybody. It relates to the consultants as well. It relates to the contractors. It relates to anybody working within the industry. But that traditional mindset, as we talked about, it's a lot of people talk about it's relating to the shift into digitalization and analytics. We're actually saying, well, yes, it is, but also no, it's not. It's also a shift into openness, honesty, transparency, better communication, team environment, working together. That seems to be a challenge for us within the industry today. That idea that it's always confrontational.
I'm not saying I'm not saying that the clients are not trusting or anything like that. What I would say is you're paying people money. If it's your own money, you wouldn't want to spend it twice. So don't. But definitely look at the efficiencies. You can ask your team where the efficiencies exist. Why do your own bill of quantities? Contractor does his bill of quantities. Supply chain do their bill of quantities. That would be absolutely crazy. Why then not have, for whatever system it might be during the process, you need somebody in your team who's actively looking at ruling out duplication, ruling out to see those efficiencies for you. And if you're not, you will end up paying a premium. Might only be 1-2%.
But nevertheless, it's a loss of money, right? That 1 or 2% could be put into higher quality, better value creation. Who knows? A good night out for the team.
But if you actively engage with somebody, and they can see the intent you're coming with, and then you're clear on who's responsible for what, they will look at the documentation, proof it in a much smaller amount of time. At which point, if they're doing that in good time, then the entire team wraps themselves around that. There may be errors in it. They may at some point come out, but that's going to happen. That may happen anyway. But again, it's coming down to having that belief in the team to drive the process. The efficiencies will come.
So the difficulties with the traditional mindset, really, the largest of them all is the inefficiency that it's now currently creating, both from a process perspective, a planning perspective, reporting, whatever the case may be, I guess. Information digitization, all of that stuff, good stuff as well, you know.
Certain members of the team will always have to be on site. That's no doubt. Nobody's arguing against that. However, does the whole team need to be there? Do they need to be there all the time? You need the intelligence at various points, and that's what you should be driving for.
Like off-site construction and the term that's coined in the UK and Ireland, you know, modern methods of construction, MMC, you could reduce your manpower on site by 50% by taking it all off-site, reducing your health and safety risk, you know, reducing your quality risk. All of this aspect is this new kind of change in mindset that we're now really discussing. I would say that the Nordics have been doing that for quite some time. You know, standardization and offsite construction is just a way of life for me. Anyway, in Denmark, I've known it for the last 13 years, but it's super and something that we need to learn from. But
so offsite construction for me, something I've been doing for about a decade in some form or another. It's really engaging with that supply chain. You will have natural economies where you have betterment. You can drive your program harder, but it needs the team then if they're not duplicating that work, they're allowed to spend time doing other more, I'm going to say, useful things. You're in a place then where your team can
value creation.
They're in a place where your team, you will have other challenges that they'll have to then work their way meaningfully through so that the Lego parts come together in the right way, that it's delivered on site, it's quality QA'd. It's in a place where when it arrives on site for erection, when it's arrived on site, that is properly checked, that people are in a place, and that the team who are paid, who are ultimately responsible for it, not the client, the team who are ultimately responsible, that they're making sure that the kit of parts is going together compliant.
Small example of that, and we'll bring it back a little bit into the design process and 3D development and quantity extraction. We've been kind of speaking about this for many years now in KOSMOS about, you know, quantity surveyors don't do quantities anymore, right? The architects and engineers do our quantities for us when they design that column, when they design that wall. It means that we don't have to sit down, or a team doesn't have to sit down and manually measure all of these items anymore. It's done once in that evolution of design within the 3D environment, meaning then we can take that information and process it as QSs. The efficiencies this creates on the back end of a design phase is weeks. Like, we can cut weeks off the schedules here. And this is really what we're talking about when we say our mind shift needs to change. Our clients need to change their understanding of what that means.
But if you look at what we do in KOSMOS to achieve that efficiency, that, call it 50% reduction in program that goes with churning out where we at money-wise, yours a place where it's because we're actively engaged in the preparation of the BIM execution plan. We're actively engaged, and we're in the design with, we're not designing, we're ensuring that the output that somebody else is doing is correct.
Yeah, and we can use it. It can be usable.
So if you take that exact same analogy with the contractors, if you engage with them, if you get them to take part in it, actively engage in it, they then understand what was done is correct and they'll take ownership for it. If you don't, I don't trust it. And that's exactly what we've been doing for a long time. But it's just that transparency, that's a little bit about education.
Yeah. Again, it all starts with the educational process, or at least the question, and then the mind begins to think about that, and you begin to change that perception of what that was. That's your mind shift change. And I hope that this kind of reaches some clients, not to insult you guys, of course, in saying that your mindset needs to change, but
it's a new way. It's a different way of working. I wouldn't say it's new. Just to raise that kind of just the idea in the mind, maybe that we can do it differently. Maybe there's something to discuss here, The key thing here is a lot of people will follow what was done before because that's the easy way. Sometimes it's the easy way to do it. Or that's what that person really likes. You're in a place now, what we're talking about is spending more of your, because time is precious. Time is precious to every single one of us. We want to spend, not that we don't like working, of course we do. We like what we do, but you want to be able to be as efficient as you can, and you want to be bringing as much value during that time when you're not actually with your family or with your doing what you like to do. Why do something that somebody else has already done? Why not input and create with somebody? So for me as a client, I've always tried to advocate, let's try and build a system and understand the process, and then you drive it. And then we only do that once. So then ideally everyone along that journey can develop, roll it up and use it. That to me was, and I saw that come true in quite a few instances. And the supply chain were happy to do that.
And I think most people, once engaged, are happy enough to kind of jump on that train of development. But I think that the key aspect today has to be efficiency, driving efficiency. If you're doing something repetitively over and over and over again, if it's a 40-page monthly report, you're doing it over and over and over. You're sitting down every month. You spend the third week or fourth week of that month on your report full time, writing it up on Word. You need to think about what you're doing here, because what real value is that having to the project other than you're delivering a document to your client?
That may never be read.
That more than likely isn't read. And what, as a client, why are you really asking for that report? And what value is it creating for you internally? It's just something very simple to think about. What if, in a hypothetical situation, that all could be automated for you, and that no one needs to write the report? Because at the end of the day, the report is just taking information from one place and putting it in another. Because your diary, your minutes of meetings, the decisions you've taken have all been documented, and now you're moving from that into a monthly report in a Word document.
Ultimately, as a client, the construction phase, unfortunately, is something that has to happen. But you want to be able to build your building. But ideally, you want all that information during that couple of year process to benefit your business. So when something happens, whether it be an apartment or an office, something happens in that facility that you're then operating, you want to be within a very short time frame going, this is the issue. And the good news is, this is the issue, or this was the non-conformance at that time, and you can put your finger on that and go, can we fix that? And it costs you nothing. That's the key. If you can that's where you want to be.
Or your investment is up front in order for it to cost you nothing down the road. And again, this is what we talk about, this repeat work process, the efficiency of it all. If we're investing in the digital asset up front, the level of information, the quality of information, the back end result for you will be efficiency.
Absolutely. If you look at any type of institutional investment, anything like that, even private clients, what they're doing, for me, it's all about how they can use all that intelligence after the event, after construction is finished. When we say goodbye to the team, we thank them for their hard work, no disputes, no fallouts, everyone's friends, we're going on to the next job. The good news is that vault of information isn't lost and thrown in a corner. It's useful to the team who now can use it. It's not a couple of pages. They have everything in order. Everybody's happy. And the good news is, if they've gone along the process of building it compliant, you then are in a place where that will become you'll have far less defects.
How comfortable would you be as a client if you've never seen your consultants, except for just one face? You never see who did the work. You never see who prepared any of the information. Just one connection.
I think you'd absolutely have to have some initial contact. So that kind of initial cup of tea where you sit with them. If they understood my business and they were, because really I'm focusing on my business. It just happens I'm interfacing with these guys. If they understood my business and were giving me the information that I needed in the time I wanted it, in the manner I wanted it to be in, so I could then use it very quickly elsewhere, or understood the problems of the constraints that are coming, I wouldn't need to see them that often. In fact, I would have said, you could argue after that initial, if they were doing the business, and I was talking to them, periodically, I would have said, obviously you need to talk to them and communicate.
No, just communicate.
But I certainly wouldn't need to be in their presence.
Yeah, we're not saying that you can't communicate. And what I'm saying is that we've done it. We have projects around the world where the team in Copenhagen have managed the entire delivery and have never actually had a face-to-face with any of the team members on the project.
But once you get the information,
over a number of years. But it's just to kind of get that understanding. As we're beginning to change now, that realization is also needs to change. If you look at your private life and your personal life, you go onto your banking system, your phone operator, all of that, you're chatting to someone online you never met, but they're solving a problem for you.
So as a result of COVID, if you look at I would argue almost every business globally, if you look at how much now they're not spending, I won't say saving, just not spending on travel, wasted time, going to and from meetings. I'm not saying you never need that, but you're looking at probably a significant reduction in expenditure as a result of people now looking at their time in a different way.
I would say loss of expenditure in relation to the travel, but the amount of time and efficiency that's now being gained from taking that 1 hour Teams meeting from your seat in your office or from that sofa in the breakout room versus the 1 hour travel to the client office, the 1 hour travel back.
Look at the quality of life of your employees. They must be engaging more in the business because now you're using less of their time. And that has to be a good thing.
There's a couple of industry subsectors within the industry, I would say, that we could really challenge today, right? We know a lot of companies that are flying in, flying out on a weekly basis, in a Monday, out on a Friday, rotationary, all of this stuff. Why are we doing that?
I think that's people just, they're used to working in a certain way. People like, performing in I've done this for years, I'll keep doing it. I have to see them for, I would question what those people are charging you for. Like as a client, I wanted to see certain people because I needed certain information from them, or I wanted them to give it to me firsthand or in person. But that was very few. It certainly was. It was probably 1 out of 100.
Yeah. I would, and again, of course, we're generalizing. We can understand that the electrician and the block layer and the pipe fitter, they need to be on site. You can't do that stuff remotely. Off-site manufacturing, absolutely, but it all needs to be fitted. We understand that. Really, we're talking about the kind of the white-collar aspect of it.
There's an aspect, yes, exactly. Yeah. If we didn't have people on site, it wouldn't get built.
It wouldn't get built, basically, yeah. So, we talked about the traditional mindset, where we are now in terms of how we need to change this and the difficulties it creates. But I suppose what I'm looking for now is, how do we help people in terms of this mindset shift? That was a tongue twister.
Well, you nailed it.
Thanks very much. Thanks. So what's our process here? How do you see, from your perspective, again, being a client and all your experience, how does someone change your mind in how you think today versus how you think tomorrow?
Some businesses will naturally seek that advancement, and some people will just they'll need to see it tried and tested. But I do think we're beyond that place where I'm going to say information is now available in multiple sources and people collaboratively, actively trying to use it. So that'll naturally erode, and people will want to see that. Ultimately, clients are going to be looking, things are always going to cost more. Things like not always, but things, but there'll be pressures on them to provide at a certain level of margin, certain level of output. That is an easy win. That is an easy win to focus on. Why pay multiple organizations multiple times for the same thing? Absolutely verify it. Absolutely. But certainly don't charge me for the privilege of redoing it. You should be paying a fraction of the cost as you move through the process, not repurposing or not paying multiple times.
I would say something that always comes to my mind, and when I ever go to conferences or shows or anything like that, I would say that I always want the students and the graduates and the newly graduates and these guys coming out and girls coming out of university of 0 to 3 to 5 years. You guys absolutely need to be hungry. You need to be hungry for information. You need to be hungry for change. You need to be questioning every single thing your manager is saying, your boss is saying, contractor, client, architect, engineer. Why? I had a good example of that about, say, 10 years ago. I joined a team, a project I was looking at, and they'd fully CAD'd up what this looked like, an ant nest. It literally, the foundations were extreme. And nobody stopped to think of why. Like literally, why have you done this? And the problem is the client had already paid tens and tens of thousands to have this drawn up. Like, actually, not to mind that, the consultant, unfortunately, had drawn it without somebody of a senior level going, hold on a second, this doesn't look right. One meeting, the whole thing was thrown in the bin. Let's go again, guys. It's about people using their experience and expertise and having the right people at the right time. If you've got people off crunching through stuff, they won't have the time to take a breath. Or the brain space. Yeah. Take a breath. And you know what? It may be the drive of the plane ride or whatever it is that they do take that time to look at your project. That has just saved you. What it'll save you the potential claim for them looking for additional fee when they do run out of it of their own unfortunate miscalculation. So I would say to everyone, enable people to have an intelligent brain space for your project. Ask them when they're doing their fee proposal for you, what if? What options can I have?
What options can I have?
Can you alter the current proposal? I know we've described what we wanted, but can you add or create more value for us by looking at it alternatively?
Is there something that somebody else is doing that I haven't taught that you might be looking without breaking any confidentiality? Actually, well, you never really need to do this.
Or what you guys are doing yourselves internally. I know we haven't asked for it, but is there something there you guys are doing that
I'm under
we could
pressure
really
on the
benefit
budget.
from?
We all have it. I'm under pressure on the budget. Can you help me? And truthfully, as a part of the RICS, SCSI, CIRB, all those lovely affiliations and things we're part of, we have a duty to act responsibly. We can't reduce our fee. We have to be in a place where we're looking at it in a meaningful way. And this is a valid option to saying, well, actually, the way you're looking for that monthly meeting and that's 3 days. Well, actually, if I do a FaceTime for you for 2 hours, or if I do a call with you for 2 hours, we deliver the report and we do give you this, and this, I can do it that way instead. So you cut it up differently and give them exactly what they're looking for. And maybe next time they look for something different.
It's a very interesting conversation. This is really developed. But the last point I would like to make is then we talked about, and I guess we've covered it within our conversation, is the advantages here. So the advantages is we can reduce time, we can reduce cost, we can increase value, we can really stop all of that repetitive wastefulness of repeat jobbing, repeat working that's so inefficient. And again, all of this starts with the mindset. The mindset is key here. And again, clients, we've been picking on you guys, but we don't mean to.
But if you go back at the start of this process, it's about setting out your stall correctly, having your BIM execution plan clear and input from the team, not just one, not the lead, from the team. We all need to know how we're working together, how we're producing. And that mindset and clarity will allow, and that forward thinking, that call it clear project management, will allow your project to be delivered in a safer, more efficient way. Because then you're kind of bringing people in earlier, everybody in a little bit earlier. It doesn't mean that you're paying them, you're bringing them in earlier, and you're weeding out that, well, actually, do you really need to do that twice? I've already got that. Do you want to proof it? And then so that proofing and that interaction, that's really what I would be advocating.
Sean, the last topic we talked about, Ilya, I still haven't seen her, so I'm not too sure what's happening. SOS maybe?
She definitely
smoke signals?
She definitely sent me a text.
Did she, yeah?
She did,
From
yeah.
where, do you know?
I can't say it.
No.
She didn't really want to talk about you.
Sean, you've no information. Thanks very much for listening. There's a LinkedIn link below in the show notes. We would love to connect with you.
We hope you enjoyed it and have you with us in the next one. Thank you very much.